Well, good morning, everyone. Hopefully, you're having a good week so far and then come to this Wednesday halfway point of the week. But I want to share with you a message today that probably is going to ring true and hit home for a lot of us who are watching this devotion this morning. I've been talking this week about experiences and feelings that Jesus felt. And I think today is definitely one that we all can relate to at some point. Let's start by looking at a couple of verses from the Bible, actually four verses. We're going to look at one from each of the four Gospels, and each one of them have something in common, and I want you to consider that as we read these. The first is from the Gospel of Matthew. It says, when Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. And hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. We talked a few days ago about the verse right after this is where Jesus felt compassion on the crowds. Um, but look at what happens there as you read this passage from the Bible. And then from the Gospel of Mark, Mark writes, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he, meaning Jesus, said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. Luke writes in his gospel, he says, Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. And finally, John in his gospel says, Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, talking of the people who were listening to him teach, right? Knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, Jesus withdrew again to a mountain by himself. And maybe you've picked up on the commonality there between all four of those verses, the fact that Jesus took time to be by himself. Um, he took time to re-energize himself because Jesus felt exhaustion. And that's what I think a lot of us can probably relate to. I'm sure that Jesus felt physical exhaustion, experiencing humanity. For the first time, God knew what it was like to be physically tired and exhausted. But more importantly, I think Jesus felt emotionally and mentally exhausted, having to provide for people so much and then taking that compassion deep in his gut upon all the people that he met must have been so draining on him. And I think a lot of us can relate to that today. A lot of us, and I think all of us who are listening to this morning, experience physical exhaustion. But I think there's a lot of us also that can relate to the fact that Jesus felt emotional and spiritual and mental exhaustion. Those of us who work so hard to provide for people in our lives, people who find themselves with physical and emotional and mental needs, ministering to people in our lives or providing. A lot of us, adults and cadets, pour so much of ourselves out into what we do and the things that we are called to do, that we love to do, that we feel that exhaustion. So I'm going to share with you, just like I have the last few days there's a slide there talking about exhaustion. And I'm not going to share anything new in the next 2 points. It says Jesus felt it, and I need to feel it too, just like we've talked about the last couple of days. Now understand, what I am not going to tell you today is that because Jesus felt exhaustion, we should feel compelled to go experience that exhaustion ourselves. But believe me, it will come soon enough upon each and every one of us. But what Jesus felt that we need to feel as well was the need to recharge himself emotionally and physically and spiritually and intellectually. And the way that Jesus did it, and this is what I want you all to learn today, is that Jesus took time to be by himself with God. He went off, we're told many times, he went off by himself to pray, to spend time with God. And a lot of times we want to retreat from life. We want to retreat from all the demands of life and just be by ourselves. And a lot of us like to enjoy naps, for example. But I do think that we are called to do so much more than that. And I think the lesson to be learned here that we can pick up from Jesus is that when we feel that exhaustion, that we need to retreat, we need to be alone with God, that we need to find ourselves approaching God and asking for strength, asking for encouragement, and asking for just the ability to continue and to go back into the fight. If you want to think of it that way, that life can be sometimes, to just take that time that Jesus took to go off wherever it was. And many times he physically was by himself. And a lot of times we need to find the time to do that ourselves. I'm not encouraging you to go find and seek out ways to become exhausted, certainly not. But I am encouraging you to find ways to recharge when you find yourself exhausted. And the example that Jesus gives us is to go to God when you feel exhausted, and you will be lifted up, you will be encouraged, and you will be strengthened. So just remember that today as we get through this halfway point of the week. I hope you'll have a fantastic day. And I will encourage you as I wrap up this devotion this morning that you spend some time as a class or as individuals, if you're watching this by yourselves, to go to the Lord in prayer and to ask for strength and guidance and encouragement, and maybe to share some prayer requests among yourselves if you're praying in a class. So I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks.